Welcome to De-Stress Your Business, the podcast where we show you how to get incredible results in your business without constant stress. I'm Alexis Kingsbury, a serial entrepreneur and founder at Air Manual. I'm joined by my co-founder and co-host, Paddy Mann. Hi, Paddy.
Good morning.
Now, every time you hire a new employee, you have an opportunity. An opportunity for your team to move faster. An opportunity for your business to grow faster. An opportunity to give the new employee an incredible experience. An opportunity to make your own job easier and less stressful. Yet, so many businesses fail their new employees within the first few days and weeks. Employee onboarding is an afterthought and doesn't get the time and preparation it needs. And sadly, instead of accelerating as a team, you're slowing down. And all sorts of stress and pain for you, for your team, and for the new joiner. In our last episode, we covered why onboarding often sucks and the impact of this. Today, we'll dive into tactical solutions to delivering onboarding that doesn't suck and is actually amazing for everyone involved. So Paddy, give us a reminder from the previous episode. What's the stress and business cost of bad onboarding before we dive into how to fix it?
Cool. So, so much pain because it affects everyone involved. You've got the manager who's hiring in and the team. And at this moment in time, at this moment where you're bringing in a new joiner, they're almost certainly very busy. The reason that they're hiring is because they've been pushed beyond the limits of what they could do without additional team members. And so they're desperate to get value from the new team member. And they feel often that they've invested a lot of time into the recruitment process. It's finding the right person is in itself a derail. And so they're coming into it with these huge hopes and so on, but they're busy with their day-to-day work and they need to support this new joiner. How's it going to work? At the same time, you've got the new joiner who has their own hopes and aspirations of what can happen with this new opportunity. And yet, while that's happening, it's a moment of big change for them. And so you've got this anxiety residing in the new joiner. It's like, is it going to meet my expectations? Am I going to live up to their expectations? Am I going to be able to deliver value in this new role? Are the team members going to be ones that I work well with and so on? And so you've got this moment of change where everyone's busy, everyone's got high hopes. And when it's done well, you've got this huge opportunity for takeoff. You've got the opportunity where someone is brought up to speed and feels really well supported, and it doesn't derail the team and the manager. And you start seeing value from that new joiner within the first. It can happen within the first days or week. Certainly does for some of our employees, including very skilled roles. And of course, it takes time to build them into the full role. But it can be a really positive experience and delivering value from day one. But when we see it done badly, and we'll say this is the norm, not the unfortunately not the few odd cases, and it was the norm for how we had it in our own businesses for so long. Okay. You don't have that quick ramp up. The new joiner isn't well supported, and you haven't got the foundations that the employee needs to be able to succeed set up in your business, in your team. And so you start becoming rely on kind of being reactive. And in the last couple of days before they get started, you prepare content, but you then deliver it all in meetings in this kind of one-to-one environment where it's great when it gets shared and for that moment where they remember it afterwards, but it quickly gets forgotten and you end up repeating yourself again and again and again. And the new joiners constantly getting blocked because they're reliant on the time that they need with you. And it takes, instead of a week, it takes months for them to get up to speed and consistently delivering value and feeling confident in their new role. And during that time, the new employee is feeling frustrated and they've got doubts. The manager's feeling frustrated and has got doubts. The team is feeling frustrated and everyone's feeling that they're not moving as quickly towards their goals. So instead of something that's accelerating them, they're slowed down. And then the impact of this, I mean, if you ignore the stress, the wellness of your team, of your manager, the impact on your evenings, on your family life, the disillusionment of the new employee and everything else, and just look at the financial impact for your team, it's enormous. I mean, you've got someone who was meant to be adding value and they're not adding value. They're slowing down the business until they eventually get up to speed. And if you are lucky enough to keep them, then you get to capitalize on the investment you've made in both the recruitment and onboarding. But we often see, something like 30% of new joiners leave within days, weeks, or months. And that means you've invested all that time in recruitment, all that time in supporting them getting started. And it pays off nothing for a huge cost to your team. It can be a massive derail. I think a lot of businesses don't look at that risk. If you don't make this investment in getting onboarding sorted, it's actually a huge risk for your team and a business rather than an opportunity.
Agreed. So we've got, and it's funny when you say, if we ignore just the stresses and the impacts on your life and so on, and just like look at the financial, it's like, I think any one of those things that you described there are worth sorting out the onboarding. It has such a huge impact, and I think most business owners, I think almost one of the challenges is knowing what it looks like when it's good. I think the problem is, exactly as you say, like, it's the norm is really poor onboarding, and therefore people struggle to see what it should look like, and that's what we should go into next. So let's go into say, how do we fix it? How do we make sure that onboarding doesn't suck and instead provides an awesome experience?
You triggered something just before that, which is that people don't know what good looks like. So I'll come on to the fixing in a moment, but just to kind of briefly cover, what does it actually feel like? Because this is something that we've iterated on heavily, and now we know that we've nailed this. And we know that we've nailed it because it's an incredible experience for the manager. It's a incredible experience for the team, and it's an incredible experience for the new joiner. And they are expressing that, very vocally. We're getting videos sort of them just showing how happy they are with some of the steps that we've taken. We're seeing rave reviews on external review sites. We're hearing about the experiences of them sharing their enthusiasm and excitement with their family and friends and so on, because what they're experiencing within Air Manual is an experience that they've not had before in any of their previous roles. And yet the stuff that we're doing isn't revolutionary or particularly difficult. It's just about having worked it through. So for the new joiner, what it means is they're able to come in and they're able to get up to speed really quickly. And we focus on getting them capable of doing something which is value adding as quickly as possible. And even for very skilled roles like engineers, where we've got a lot of internal best practices and standards, we are finding an area where they can actually add value with a significant part of their time within a week. And we're doing the same in sales or any other area where we're finding a task where we can get them up to speed quickly and delivering value. And that gets them past that moment of anxiety. As the moment that they feel confident they can deliver, the moment that the team feels confident they can deliver, is a huge, huge milestone. For the manager, when we used to do it, it was the biggest derail. You're essentially putting aside your week to support the new joiner and joiners going around the team, and then you're fixing all the issues and things that you're missing. Nowadays, when we hire someone in as a manager, I often spend less than an hour with them in the first week, which is pretty in line with what I'm spending with any other team member. And yet I know they're having a brilliant experience. And of course that they're getting some of that is because I'm assigning the support and the buddy work to other members in the team. But a lot of that is because of the systems we've put in place. So that's what we can be aiming towards.
Yeah, I really like that, and I'm tempted to say, and then before we go into the fix it, I think one of the temptations when for business owners is to over rely on these skills and expertise, or not just rely on, but over assume that a skilled, experienced new employee will just come in and be able to do those things without that kind of handheld onboarding support. I think for a lot of business owners to say, oh well, yeah, if you haven't got a skilled worker, if they're coming into McDonald's, sure, then the onboarding needs to be really detailed. But if I've got some really creative types and so on, it makes me think like if we take a really skilled area like I don't know brain surgery or flying jets, you say, well, let's say you've hired a new jet pilot. That jet pilot doesn't just immediately rock up to the landing strip on day one and say, is it like point at a plane and go, that's probably the one I need to fly, gets in and off he goes. Like you would expect that he's going to need all sorts of things in terms of understanding how the organization works, when he's going to be flying, all these sorts of things. And then even the understanding that particular aircraft and all these sorts of like, and that's for something incredibly skilled where, there is a lot of trust in then their ability once they're in the air and dealing with these things. But it's like, it's that, isn't it? It's about getting them to that point that they can apply their brilliance. It's taking where the value and the expertise that you're expecting them to apply, but putting them into a position that they can start to do it. And it doesn't have to be, a jet pilot, just a salesperson, taking skills that they have with enthusiasm and communication, but putting them into a position where they understand who the target customer is, what the pains are, how your products and services solve those pains, what's the journey that you need to take the customer on, what's the appropriate next step, what's the pricing and so on, what's the, all those things. That's the understanding that they need to have so that they can start to apply their brilliance to it and add that value. So, Paddy, we've got to get into how do we fix this then? How do we create this awesome onboarding experience for all involved?
Yeah, well, I love what you were just sharing, and it's absolutely right, because when you look at that salesperson that's excelled in their previous role that you think is going to deliver so much, the reason they've been able to excel in their previous role is because all of this already existed in their previous company, and that is so easy to overlook. True. So, yeah, how do we do this? Okay, we've got 5 key principles, and these key principles are one, they're kind of fundamental truths of things that you need to be doing, but it's also they're the areas where we see things going wrong most frequently in other organizations. So these are the ones where it's not, we're not trying to sell fluff, and obviously you need to do this. It's actually, when we talk to most business owners, that they don't realize. So these are 5 key things where if you change them and work out how to follow through on these 5 areas, it's gonna revolutionize your onboarding. So the first one, you need to hold teams accountable for their own onboarding. Now, the mistake that we were talking about in the previous episode was this kind of assumption that onboarding is something that belongs to HR. And if you search for onboarding, you will certainly find a lot of tools that are aimed at HR. And this is a travesty in itself, which is if you look for onboarding tools, all of the onboarding tools who say that they do onboarding, they are entirely focused on company onboarding for the HR team. And most of them completely ignore that the majority of onboarding needs to happen in a team for that employee. The company onboarding is something that happens in the first few days. It is important. It is important the experience, and you get them up to speed with the company stuff. It is something that delivers value for every single employee. But the majority of onboarding is going to be in the days, weeks, and months after that company onboarding, as you take someone in and get them up to full speed. And I tell you what, most of the onboarding tools out there just don't support it. So you need to hold teams accountable for their own onboarding. You need to make it clear to managers that they are not going to get people who have been onboarded because they've been through company onboarding. There is a separate activity that needs to go on within a team, and they're going to need to support the employee through. They're going to need to have their own internal process for each role, and then manage that. So that's number 1. Number 2, we then need to set clear goals, and this is the second point of huge confusion about what's even in the scope of onboarding. And people get this confusion about, is it about the induction? Is it about the first few days? Or is it about the 20, 30, 60, 90-day plan? Well, that sounds very enterprisey, and I'm a much smaller organization, so surely it's not that big. What is it? What's achievable? And rather than thinking about day 1 or day 90, I prefer to set 3 three goals. The first is that we want to quickly get the new joiner feeling welcome, supported, and productive. So I covered earlier that you've got a new joiner, they come in, they're feeling anxious about their ability to deliver value, and you as a manager and team, you're feeling anxious about their ability to deliver value. The sooner you can get over the initial hurdle of making them feel like they're being productive is a huge milestone, and we want to get to that point quickly. We want to, throughout that experience, make sure they feel welcome and supported and confident that they're going to be able to shine in this role. So that's the first goal, and that's often where people focus on almost entirely on just doing that, and often it takes longer than it should, but that's the first goal. The second goal is to get the new joiner happy and confident in all areas of their role so that they can deliver consistent results without needing consistent support. As long as they're in a position where they still feel like they can't do some of the tasks which are their responsibility, then you're still not going to be needing to support them, to fix their mistakes, to do it. It's not going to feel like they're a fully fledged value-adding member of the team. But getting to that point, this point takes much longer, and it goes initially, the biggest, most important tasks. It's doing a demo call as a salesperson and being able to update the CRM, and then it gets expanded to the stuff that happens less often, like doing a quarterly review of budget and other things which happen less frequently. But ultimately, onboarding needs to take that long view of going, how do I get them to the point where they can do everything in their role? And once you have that clarity, that I, as a manager, I'm responsible for role onboarding, and two, my responsibility is not just to get them a laptop and a description of what to do on day one, but to take them to the point where they are fully confident in all areas. Then you've actually got a chance, because you suddenly get, okay, the scope of what I'm doing and need to do is that much larger. And it's going to, just that awareness is going to get rid of a load of pain points that you would otherwise have, because so many people feel like they've done onboarding, and so why are these problems still occurring? And if we were to look at it with this goal, we'd say, nope, you've started onboarding and then you've stopped doing onboarding, but you haven't finished onboarding, and that's why you're still feeling pain. And then the third goal is to make great use of everyone's time, because there are many ways that you could be delivering onboarding, and in theory you could just repeat the same message, talking to them 100 times until they can basically chant it back to you, but that would be terrible use of everyone's time. So we need to make sure it's efficient. We need to make sure that the new joiner is delivering an impact and actual value for the salary you're paying them, and that it's not derailing the whole company.
Nice. Yeah, really like that. I think that before you go into the sort of number three, I think, so recapping on that number two, like setting those clear goals, absolutely love that. I think that walking through that, as you say, getting them, getting the new joiner feeling welcome, supported and productive, then looking at the entire role and helping them that, and then making a good use of people's time. And it's so easy and tempting to do part of that. I mean, and for so many businesses, like, in fact, I'd encourage people listening, like, think about, at the moment, for a new joiner joining your business, do they fit, like, would you expect them to feel welcome? Would you expect them to feel supported, and for how long? And then how quickly do you get them productive, which includes setting them up with the tools that they need, setting them up with understanding communication methods in the tool, understanding how the organization is structured, the meeting rhythm, how it works, all those sorts of things. Those things need to be in place so that they can be productive. And then, of course, the first thing that they can start doing to add value. And typically in our businesses, we're looking to do that. Well, firstly, understanding the organization we're looking to do and all those sorts of things in day one, but typically adding value within 3 to 5 working days, where they're actually able to do something that contributes to our goals, I think is really powerful, before then expanding into other areas. So that's number 2. So setting clear goals. Paddy, take us through what's number 3 in terms of how we'd recommend fixing this.
So number 3, fix the foundations. And regular listeners to this podcast would start to know what we mean by the foundations. We're talking about putting in the SOPs and policies, and mainly SOPs. And by SOP, I simply mean checklists that explain how to do tasks, so that there are clear expectations of how the common tasks that someone needs to do in their role needs to be done in your organization. And there's often this kind of belief. It's like they've done sales before, therefore why would they need all these checklists? And it's like the nuances of how they do a call or have to fill in a CRM or have to report it to you. Everything will be slightly different in your organization, and you will go crazy if they do everything the way they did before, and they won't be able to, because you haven't got the same tools, because they aren't selling the same product, because there's so many little things which are different, and that means you don't have any other option. You can't just say go off and look on Google and work out how to do this. You need to have a defined way of how those tasks are done in your organization. It doesn't need to be this 10 pages of detailed notes and a perfect script of everything in a demo call, for example, but they do need the high level steps and a view of these are the standard things where these are the steps which are absolutely essential. You need to make sure you do things in this order. You need to make sure that a meeting always gets scheduled at the end of the call. You need to make sure you update this and this in the CRM afterwards, because if it doesn't, it causes a serious pain for the organization. And so the foundations are making sure that guidance exists in your team, so that any training that you then provide has a resource they can refer to back later when they need to be proactive, because they haven't remembered every little detail. And every time that you spot something wrong, which might have been wrong in the guidance or might have been wrong in the training or anywhere else, or an opportunity to improve, you've then got a baseline which you can then tweak, and you can make a tweak to the process so that it then gets fixed and improved, both for the new joiner this time and for future ones. So it's so important to get the foundations in line. Now, that might feel scary if you are looking at this and go, oh man, we don't have any of this stuff. So I'd say don't worry. This is something that we coach our own customers on and make easy in Air Manual, but you can apply it wherever, which is it's just prioritization. It is basically look at all the content they need, get clear on the full scope of the different tasks that exist. What do they need to do daily, weekly, monthly, as needed? What other guidance do they need? Just get a list of the full content that they will need at some point, and then prioritize what are they going to need on day one, what's going to block them from even moving forward, and focus on that. And then just iteratively prioritize. And some of the content you may well not need for days, weeks, months, or whatever. And you may discover that actually they do know how to do a certain area and it isn't needed. So that's okay. But essentially, you work out what foundations they need, and then prioritize like crazy, because it does take a little while to put in, and focus on creating the content that they'll need on day one, and go from there.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you're right that it's such a barrier often to business leaders, is this idea of, I need to have everything in place from right from the beginning or whatever, and as a result they didn't do any of it, right? Like I was literally I was at a dinner and sat next to a business owner only last week who despite the fact that they were sort of bought into a lot of the things that we share, they said that their biggest concern was finding the time to get it all done. And as we've shared in previous episodes, like we've helped people in 2 hours save 2 hours a week, even 15 hours a week. And so like when you put a small amount of time, you can get a lot of time back. But the problem was that his mindset was the other way around. He was saying, I feel like the thing that would help is if I just got all of it documented, and then it would be easier to maintain in the long term. And so I said, okay, before we tackle that mistaken belief, because he was sharing it because he knew it was, and so that wasn't an offensive thing to say. I said, like, how long do you estimate that would take? And he was like, about a week, like of solid effort. And it's like, and when are you going to find the time to do that? It's like, never. Like, we're busy. And so, of course, our approach and what we recommend is you start small. You start exactly as you said, Paddy, like prioritizing with just a few 1, 2, 3 processes that you can get captured, so that when that new joiner comes in, at least you've got something in that first week or so for them to start picking up. And I remember with a different business owner, we helped them in 2 sets of an hour and a half, so 3 hours total in 1 week, meant that their new joiner the following week, their head of operations, was able to basically self-drive 95% of all their onboarding for the next week, where previously the business owner would have had to spoon feed them. And so it's amazing what you can get done, and particularly when you prioritise. So completely agree with that. So let's say we've held teams accountable, we've set clear goals, we've fixed the foundations. What's number 4? What do we need to do?
Cool. This is actually the exciting one. I'd say
I agree.
Possibly the biggest game changer from how most people think they're going to do it to how we would highly recommend that you do it, and that is to put the new joiner in the driving seat. So you know how it is when you join a new company, or your expectation, and you start having these meetings with different parts of the company, and you go through and you get this kind of 1 hour lecture on this is how the finance bit works, and 1 hour lecture on something else, and then there's a really interesting bit, or you're just like, oh man, okay, this is really important. You take down a load of notes, and then but it goes through a bit too quickly. You didn't quite understand it, and then there's another slow bit on how to do the CRM. You want to reverse that. You want to basically make it self-service so that people can move at their own speed. There will be some things in the onboarding experience that they find very easy to get a grasp on, and they can just scan over it. There is no need for someone to sit down with them and read what the company vision is, and then the values is, and so on. I mean, there can be great if you've scaled up and you're doing a proper workshop and getting people engaged and excited about it, but that's rarely the case when you're in a smaller organization. You're instead basically taking them through one by one, and it's very, very time consuming for both you and the new joiner. Whereas what you can do with self-service is basically let them go through it, and if they don't understand something or need more time to really understand, then they can invest the time they need. And what we do in our checklist is we make it. It's not just ticking off the box. We ask a question. It's like, okay, what was the biggest takeaway? What excites you most about what we're doing in our vision? And that gets them to think about it in a way that often wouldn't have been engaging in the lecture you gave them. You're giving them time to reflect on it and tell you back. And then you say, okay, is there anything that confuses you? And just by asking these 2 questions, you get everything you need. You get them feeling engaged and really thinking about it. You've made sure that they understand it, and you've got the answers, which when you then meet with them and you basically, alongside a self-serve checklist, you make sure you've got some scheduled calls with their manager or buddy to basically check in on their progress and go through where they're at and their questions. You then go, oh, I see that you had this confusion about the vision. This is what it means. And of course, you could then look at how to improve that content for next time. But it makes it this kind of engaging experience where the people who want to go flying are super excited on day one and just want to move quickly, they can do. The people who feel really uncomfortable moving forward, if they don't feel like they really understand it at a deeper level, they can do that. And people will move at different paces. But what we've found by giving them these self-service ways of doing it, and we have a checklist of things that they can do before they join, a checklist that they can do to do their company onboarding, a checklist that they would do within a role, is that they feel that they can move quickly. They never feel like they are blocked. And that's the worst on day one when you're going to go, okay, I have to wait for my laptop. I've got half an hour because I haven't got my login details, or I've done the task that was assigned to me, and my next meeting with someone isn't for 30 minutes. I'll go make a cup of coffee. It kills that momentum, that excitement. So they never, ever feel blocked. They always feel like they're engaged. And because of the questions we're asking, they feel like their opinion matters and is valued, and they are getting rid of any confusion points as they go, and it can get them up to speed really, really quickly. And then from them, what we get is we're literally getting rave reviews from people going, "This is amazing," and then you're there as a manager going, "Awesome! I've spent like half an hour with you, and in that half an hour, at no point did I spend that telling you stuff that you could have read or learned anywhere else. It was 100% focused on those biggest areas and questions where I could actually deliver a lot of value, because those were the areas that either confused or particularly excited you, and that's awesome. It's not only is it putting them in the driving seat, but by doing that, you're giving them their own tailored experience, because you're focusing all the coaching around the bits that they care about.
Yeah, I love that. So a couple of thoughts share on that. So one is Firstly, if you're interested in, so what does a good self-service onboarding checklist look like? If you've already got access to Air Manual and that that you're logged in and got your workspace, at the top right, click on the little question mark and go on examples and templates and search for onboarding, and you'll find a load of pre-made templates and checklists that provide you the structure, for helping make sure that your new joiner is going to feel welcome and supported and become productive and so on. So that provides a great starting point and helps you see, what does good look like. So I think that's really powerful and worth checking out those kind of resources to see that. The other thought that I have, because I think we've kind of described our approach, and our preferred approach is put a little bit of time in advance of the new joiner arriving. And I've mentioned a few things like examples of, basically it's literally 3 hours to save you 18 the following week when that person joins. So it's time well invested, and that tends to be our preference. But it's interesting. Yesterday, Danielle Mulvey from the All In company, one of our customers, and an absolutely awesome person, and really fantastic company. She collaborates and is sort of partners with Mike Michalowicz, who wrote Profit First and Clockwork and so on. And I loved her comment on the episode that we did yesterday, which was that she said, here's my top tips for improving your onboarding. Step 1, when the new joiner comes in on their first day, teach them how to use Air Manual. Step 2, teach them everything that they need to know. And step 3, request that they create it as checklists in Air Manual. And what she's essentially saying is like, if you feel like you really haven't got time, you can't even put that hour and a half aside, 3 hours aside before the person joins, then at the very least, set that person up so that they can capture it, so that in future you don't have that challenge. Because if you're then going to spend 20 hours teaching and spoon feeding that new employee in their first week, then you better get that documented. And empowering the person to do it themselves is a really nice way to do that, which actually links to something that we do, which is that when we've got someone self-driving their onboarding, we don't just, it's not like, we just dump them in a corner and say, here's your checklist, let me know in 2 weeks when you can do your job. We support them through one-to-ones with the manager and check-ins and so on that are part of the checklist as much as things in their calendar. But when questions come up, when mistakes get made, we use that as an opportunity to improve the onboarding checklists. So when a member of my team says, Alexis, I wasn't sure about this, the checklist or the onboarding says that I should do this, but then I spotted in a separate checklist that it says I should do something slightly different. Which one's the answer? And I go, that's a really good point. Yeah, that does contradict. That's because we changed it and I haven't updated it in both places. Here's the answer. Now please update the checklist so that it's reflective of that. And that's a really powerful way in which you're both empowering the employee and that they're adding value early on, but also you're continuously improving what you're doing and putting them in the driving seat, which I really, really like. So we've covered the sort of 4 ways in which you can fix it. Number 5, what's the last way or the last big way in which we'd say that people can improve their onboarding, make sure it doesn't suck?
Cool. The 5th and final bit is to sprinkle on the wow factor, and it's just thinking about little touches you can do. So we said one of the goals was about making them feel welcome and supported, and it's really putting the focus on how do we make them feel really, really welcome? How do we make this an experience where they're glowing and they want to tell their partners about it, because that just puts them completely at ease, and it does such a service for your whole organization, and it sets their expectations so high about both what they can expect from your company, but also how they will respond to your company and what how they want to give. And so what we don't suggest at all is that you spend weeks and invest all of your time on creating some really elaborate branded materials and so on. It's so easy. And we said yesterday on yesterday's episode, if you look on Google about how to do great onboarding, there's so much focused just on this one point about how to do shiny things which you can put on Instagram, that you can quickly go, that's the most important thing we need to do. I'd say this is this is definitely not the most important thing. Equipping someone to do their job will make them feel much happier than any kind of shiny object that they get. But there are small things that you can do with very low effort that do make a really, really good impression. And I'll just give an example of something that we do in our own organization. So during, as we're getting ready for someone to join, they get their own checklist of things that they can do, and they need to join, sign a contract. But we also give them the ability to read about our vision and values and the way they're going to be supported in advance. And in some of the upcoming episodes, we're going to be going deeper into the steps that we take both before and during the onboarding in detail. But as part of that checklist that they have before they actually join, we ask them a question. We go, look, from time to time, we like to be able to reward employees for having done a great job. And we don't know what you like. We know some people like a beer and think that's the best thing ever, but other people don't like drinking. Some people like flowers, other people wouldn't appreciate that. So could you tell us what your gift preferences are? And so, people tell us, and it's a whole mix. Mm-hmm. And then what we simply do is go, brilliant. We now know exactly what to get them on day one to say thank you for joining. And we get that sorted. We get it in the post because we're a remote company. And they completely unexpectedly, despite having filled in this form, completely unexpectedly have this moment of joy when they open the post and get a bottle of gin or a massive bouquet or whatever it is. And it's something that to us, the expense is, it's very small compared to everything else that we're paying for at that moment in time. Yeah. And yet the majority of employees we have at some point sent us a picture of them beaming with their gift, because it's such a unexpected and personal touch, which they want to. Up to that point, they've been talking to their other halves, to their family, friends, and there's always this kind of nervousness. And now they've got something, instead of talking about nervousness, they've talking about something amazing which happened, and which, honestly, it inspires envy in their friends. And it gives them status, it gives them real confidence in what's going to happen. So it's a huge thing, and yet it's so small. Simply, the effort involved, we didn't spend 5 hours looking for the perfect gift by doing a load of research. We asked them what they wanted, and then we ordered it. It didn't take a huge amount of time, but it did require a little bit of thinking and a little bit of wow factor. Other things like personal notes, making sure that they feel super welcome, like make sure that they don't start the day without actually seeing anyone. So just looking through your checklist and going, are there any points where they might feel lost or not welcome? And are there any things where we could do something a little special? Where, if you're in the office, we could take them out for a meal. We could serenade them with coffee unexpectedly. We could have the CEO drop in, whatever it is. Just tiny things that will make a big difference. And it's worth it on top of all the other stuff that we've talked about today.
Yeah, I love that. And I think this is a real opportunity for business leaders, for HR people, for people directors, whoever it is that are kind of coming together to create this experience, to really tap into some of that creativity. And as much as possible, the more it's linked to the culture of your organization, the better, right? So if you're an organization that really believes in lots of social time together, then creating some wow factor around the social time on the person's first day or first week is a really nice way to do that. And I think there's loads of things you could do. I've seen from other businesses where they have taken the new joiner perhaps to go and have a tour of maybe their factories or something like that, or to meet one of the company's customers and perhaps even or shadow a sales conversation. Or I remember back when I worked at DHL, they would do things like even taking some of the sales and the customer service staff and get them to go out in a van with one of the drivers and experience that kind of journey, or some other amazing experience of go and see how the parcels are sorted at those offices. And it's those things that imprint quite heavily in the memory of that new joiner, to make them see how that they're part of a bigger thing, and that actually it's quite exciting and rewarding and purpose driven and whatever it is. So I think finding those little ways that become a bit more exciting or aligned with your values and so on. It's really, really powerful. And as I say, there's various ones that we put in place. But I think that, you used that word very intentionally, with sprinkle. I think, as you say, the temptation is to go overboard on it, and it's just not necessary, and in fact can become a bit of a distraction if you're spending too much time on that. So I really, really like that. Cool. Well, we're very much coming up for our time, so we're going to move to a close. But in terms of what we've covered, we've been talking about the tactical solutions for delivering onboarding that doesn't suck, and actually, hopefully you've seen, can be really amazing for everyone involved. As regular listeners will know, we run a weekly webinar on how to free up 15 hours per week and remove the constant stress of running a business without slowing down growth. As part of that webinar, we do talk more about onboarding and how to create that amazing experience in more detail. Those webinars are typically every Wednesday at 1 p.m. UK time. You can find out about the next one and register at www.airmanual.co/webinar. Please do come and join me live during that. A final note for our podcast listeners: as a new podcast, we do need your help. If you found the content today valuable, please just take 1 minute to leave an honest review and indeed share it with other people. This will help the podcast get more visibility and ultimately help us to have a greater impact on more business teams. Otherwise, until next time, have fun.